Welcome to the Richard Thomas Writing Channel. I'm Richard Thomas, and I set up this channel to share my writing. I write basically stories and essays, I guess. And actually, I'd like to start. I promised myself I was just going to read writing here and I wasn't going to talk, but I think some talk is necessary and maybe I'll do more of it. I began this writing channel. Actually, I had the writing channel before, but don't look at anything before this video. This is really the introduction to it. I began this channel for a reason. I wrote a blog. Some of you might know it. It's called the Rick Blog. And I wrote that blog for 10 years. And early in this year, 2024, a very close friend of mine and my wife started getting on me and saying, you know, you really can do more ambitious writing than what's on that blog, which was pretty ambitious, I think. I mean, they liked the writing on the blog, and so did I. But so I tried writing manuscripts, and I submitted the manuscripts to publishers and agents. I mean, I spent the first few months of the year writing these manuscripts, and then I submitted them. And after going through the process of submission, I realized I didn't want to submit to publishers and writing agents. Nothing against them and nothing against me. I didn't get any acceptances, but I got some very warm rejections. And I had several of the people that I was in contact with say, keep at it. You'll find a fit. This is standard what they tell people, but you know, it was encouraging. I'm pretty confident that if I would have kept doing it, I would have eventually been published by somebody. But I didn't like the process. I didn't like it, and there's a few things that I didn't like about the process. First, I've got to admit that I really wasn't interested in reading any of the books that were published by the publishers I submitted to. I mean, they would say, you know, if you want to publish with us, read and become familiar with what we do, and perhaps there would be a fit. And I tried to get as close to a fit as I could, but there was really no fit. I mean, some of them were highly commercial, you know, they were more suited to if I had written a gardening book or something. So forget that, obviously. Some of them were very much an extension of some sort of master's in fine arts literary complex or something, which I come to this from a different direction. So I had to learn about what that was. But I just didn't find it very interesting. I mean, you'd see a book that was written by somebody from the hollows of Kentucky, and you'd see a book that was written by somebody from the Upper East Side of New York, and they both sounded exactly the same. I mean, it seemed like this writing was crafting beautiful sentences that didn't amount to anything. So, you know, this quest for it's not the reason why I write. And I also found that because I was gearing towards these publishers and agents, it affected my writing in a way. Because, you know, it was like applying for a job. And I don't think that that's a bad analogy, because I think that if one would say, we'd like to publish you, I'd lose a lot of control over my writing. And it's not a matter of ego that I want to keep control over my writing. It's that that's what I'm interested in doing. I'm not interested in writing their book. I mean, I'd love to have a great editor. I have a very good friend who says makes wonderful suggestions, and my wife does as well. Uh, so and uh, people that have read me like on the blog or whatever have also said some things that are very helpful. But they have a specific market, even if it's an intellectual or artistic press or whatever, they have a specific thing that they're looking for. And what they look for and what you said is the potential to fit into what they're looking for, which is completely legitimate. I mean, if I had a press, I'd have that attitude too. I mean, it's their creativity. But I wasn't much interested in what they're looking for. So it just wasn't a fit. So then I'm facing a question on two fronts. I mean, there's two things that I always think about, and probably all writers do. The, what I'm writing, and then if it's to be who's it for? Is it just for me? Is it for God? Is it for what audience is it for? Whatever. I mean, how do you share what you're writing? And then I looked into self-publication, and I wasn't interested in that. And I think most of it is kind of a racket. And I just think I'd have a bunch of books in my office here, boxes of books that are unsold. I mean, I could figure out everything about how to publish a book. There's software for it, like everything else. It's much easier. But then I had no way to distribute it. So what am I doing? So I really didn't want to do that. So I figured the best thing. Um, well, I didn't figure it. It just sort of occurred to me. I'm just trying something. I mean, that's what you have to do. You have to try stuff and see. I just felt like, look, this is the Richard Thomas Writing Channel. I do want to share writing that's of a higher standard than the blog, I think, except I think a lot of that blog writing was quite good. And I won't talk about that today, but I'll probably talk about it some other time. So I, how do I share it? So I figured what I would do is I would start this video channel and do readings on it. And then if you like a particular video, particular reading or readings on that video, you can click like. If you want to hear more, you can subscribe. And in that way, uh, people will be witnessing my work, or interacting with my work. I think art's a conversation. Even if you're sitting there silently and listening, there's something going on in your mind. And if you want to keep seeing it, or even if you hear one thing or whatever, uh, I think it connected. My ambition is not to be a millionaire. It's not to be famous. I don't want to be Stephen King. I'm not looking. I'm not looking for anything like that. What I do feel my responsibility is that I have two responsibilities. One, that I get to my writing to the highest potential that it could possibly have. I mean, the aspiration is to be a great writer. I'm not looking at the guy that got an offer with a submission at some press that I applied to. I'm looking at like Eugene O'Neill and J.D. Salinger, and I don't know. Maybe I'm showing my age with my references, but they're still good writers. I just so I would like my writing to be really good, and I would like it to be available to people that would get something out of it. So, that makes the kind. I remember once when I was really in the wrong lane, when I was in an entertainment situation, which maybe I'll, not maybe, I'm sure I will talk about in future videos, but somebody said, read the room. Well, no, I'm not trying to read the room. I'm trying to. I don't know if it's art. I've said that for a long time. Oh, it's art or whatever. I'm not sure if it's art, but I want it to be authentically me. So that's what I want to share with the world. It's a very small thing that I'm doing. I don't have any grand ideas about it. It's basically what everybody does. It's what you do. The biggest thing we have to give to the world is ourselves. And I'm here, so I want to share things. So since this is an introduction, what I'd like to do is I'm going to take one of these submission letters in this video. I'm going to read it to you, and the submission letters included the first chapter of one of the manuscripts that I wrote, and I'll read that to you because it's part of the letter. So what I'm doing is that I'm submitting to you. So you can respond with a like, or you could respond by subscribing. And and we'll see. I mean, I know from the experience of the blog that you put something out there, even if it doesn't seem anybody's liking it or whatever, people read it. You hear about, oh, I read this or that. People that didn't even know that I had a blog, I thought, so who knows? But anyway, so I just picked at random one of these letters. This was my submission letter. And I guess I'll start right off the bat with a comment. The title of this book was The Luck of Ricky Tommaso by Richard Thomas, a memoir. So there's two things I want to say. I don't like the title, so that wouldn't be the title of this manuscript in future forms. I just happened upon that Shirley MacLaine's daughter wrote a book entitled My Luck. And I didn't want to have a title using the same concept as Shirley MacLaine's daughter. Now, the friend that I mentioned has actually worked with her and everything. He's involved in theater and acting and directing and everything. So he's worked with her. He said she's a nice person and a nice actress. But the thing is I had a problem with luck. And then I also had a problem with memoir, even though this is technically, I guess, a memoir that I wrote. It's not a fiction, but really the whole thing about a memoir is just like, for example, 100 years ago, I worked with I worked with a lot of famous people at a theater that I was acting at. So I'm not writing this so you would say, "Oh my gosh, he knew Chris Farley or something." I don't know. It's like it's not some name dropper thing. I'm trying to get truth about the human condition. I'm not trying to name drop and impress you. Oh, okay, so that's something that's changed since I sent these out. Now this is this was really a reach. Okay, I'm a first generation Italian American. So I start, "Dear Ms. Whoever, I was prompted to submit to you based on the interest you expressed in your web biography regarding immigrant stories and an interview that you did for Poets and Writers." Well, my parents were first generation, but I didn't have an immigrant story. I wasn't working 16 hours a day in a Korean grocery store and going to night school, and somebody's going to be offended by that. I don't know. I don't mean to offend you, really, and I would agree with you. Okay, so know that this is one of the perils of improv because it's self-revelatory. So, but please forgive me. But I still want to make that point. The immigrant experience she was looking for, I had never had. Let's just leave it at that. And I say I am an experienced writer now building a literary platform. That's true. I wrote the theatrical material and performed it on the main stage of the Second City Theater in Chicago. That's true. It's all true. I'm not going to keep saying that's true, that's true, that's true. Who am I, Trump? I'm telling you the truth. So my one-man show was called by legendary theater director Paul Sills the greatest evening of theater in the past 25 years in 1986. I was a litigator for the Illinois Attorney Registration and Disciplinary Commission and wrote published articles about issues in ethics and professionalism law. I wrote a textbook for my classes as a professor of professional presence and ethics at the University of Illinois, Chicago. Most importantly, I shared my literary writing, essays, for 10 years on my blog. Okay, so this is replacing it. I'm going to make a distinction here, and it will probably be for writing that I present here. I have blog posts, which are pretty much just off-the-cuff opinion pieces. I have essays, which are more considered commentary, and I have stories, which are longer and have a narrative and whatever. A story, you've heard stories. I think it's that kind of, it's that simple. My literary voice and craft leaped forward in this period. That was from 2014 to 2024. Everything I've done was not only work for its own sake, but preparation for what I am doing now. That's very true. It's like one of the best writing courses that I had was when I practiced law, which I did late in life. I started when I was 50. So that was working in improvisational theater at a high level and being a litigator at the law. I guess I'm chauvinistic about it, but I think I have better writing training than I would have with an MFA, at least for my writing. I have written this memoir, which is not a vanity remembrance, but an attempt to use my personal experience as a portal to larger and more universal meaning. And as I say, I have to figure out ways to do that more effectively. The book explores themes of true friendship, identity, the contrast between being raised by immigrant parents and what I encountered in the broader American culture, authenticity and self-esteem. It has many other approaches to what I encountered. I think that I would change this probably to origin story. I don't know, the computer just did something. So I would change this title, at least it's a working title, to Origin Story. And now it talks about the other themes. The book explores themes of friendship, identity, the contrast between being raised by immigrant parents and what I encountered in the broader American culture, authenticity, and self-esteem. I hope my work satisfies a good portion of your high standards. I don't like that at all. Not that it's not my hope, but I don't like that marketing and sales, and I don't like bosses. I don't like selling. I don't like marketing. I don't like it. I just don't want to do it. So, you figure out other ways to do it. Thank you for your kind attention, Richard Thomas. A brief description of my book, 85,530 words. I'm not reading all of them on this video. Dropout lawyer, improviser, promising young actor, outpatient, telemarketer, unemployed, lawyer, college professor, essayist on a blog, husband, grandfather. The timeline of this memoir is from around age 34 to age 46, with several flashbacks and flash forwards. And then I give a brief relevant bio. What I feel is the heart of my book in 2 sentences. See, you're basically taking an entrance exam here. It's like, this is the story of a person who is absolutely committed to following his feeling of being true to himself, even when he has no idea of who he is. He receives warm love and often vicious pushback from the world, which teaches him much about his own and the world's nature, leads him to joy and wonder at the continual discovery, born and reborn, of his inner and outer experience, and endows him with profound gratitude that he was born gifted with a predisposition to self-determination. And then they want to know what the audience is. And really, how the hell do I know? Because the connection I'm going to have with you is not going to be based on demographics. It's not going to be based on your age or your ethnicity or anything else. But this is what I wrote for her. This is a literary memoir. One audience would be people interested in provocative writing. Well, that's true. Italian Americans, New Yorkers, upstate and in New York City, improvisers, actors, comedians, lawyers, lapsed Catholics, Notre Dame fans and antagonists, the unemployed and the underemployed would all identify with and find insights and observations about characters and setting that they are familiar with in the book. I mean, it's beneath me to make these type claims. I should just, I should just, write Shakespeare, Hamlet. This is a story about a prince who is confused. I mean, I don't know. All right. The most interested readers would probably be people who are different than more conformist types in terms of their interests and aptitudes. Artists and intellectuals, for example, who are fighting or want to fight the good fight of finding themselves and trying to find their place in a paradoxically loving and hostile world. I like that sentence. But again, it's kind of like, how do I know? I don't know if it's necessarily limited to that. Why do we know? What do we really know what the purpose is of anything that we do? I mean, we have our own purpose, anything that we do or say, but how does it affect the world? We don't know. I've done plenty of things, and other people have done plenty of things that had great impact on me, and they weren't thinking of me at all. And the reverse is true. So I think it's just for people who would like it, I'm not gonna, you don't have to, there's no qualifications to listen to this stuff. Okay, now I'm going to do a reading, because this is the next part of this submission, and this is the first chapter. 1955 to 1961. If life begins at conception, and I'm not telling you what to believe, I was conceived in love, and my life is made of the stuff. My parents were 2 Italian immigrants who made love in the bedroom of their brand new house on Tarrington Road in East Arundecoit, New York, when the working class was prosperous, suburb of Rochester, New York, up the hill from the beautiful and blessedly underdeveloped shore of Arundecoit Bay. Annie and Augie never had more passion for one another than they did at the moment when Augie's sperm penetrated Anne's egg and made me. My brother Randy was conceived in their cramped room on Rochester's dilapidated west side in my paternal grandma's house. They loved him plenty, but he was the product of their striving. They had to strive all of their lives, but I was conceived in an ecstatic moment of celebration. Mom and Dad achieved a big chunk of the American dream when they built that house, just 10 years after they won World War II and 9 years after they got married. Randy was planned. I wasn't. But my uninvited status only led to a brief moment of reconfiguration of logistical considerations. My impending arrival was never viewed as a burden. I was a bonus baby. From day one, beyond mom's womb, there was nothing wrong with me. I didn't have to prove anything. I was eminently worthy simply because I am who I am. I immediately assumed that everyone loved me for just being me, and that everyone else was loved for just being them. The house on Tarrington Road grew over the years. Dad was friends with masons. He fixed their cars, and they built a big brick fireplace in the backyard to grill comparably big porterhouse steaks. Mom's sauce and meat from the sauce came first. Then came Dad's porterhouse steaks. We ate at restaurants too. That's where I had shrimp cocktails and crocks of French onion soup. The salad was chilled a little better when we went out. The French dressing was tangier than the stuff from the supermarket, but nothing compared to eating at home. We feasted. There was always a lot on the menu, and the portions were huge. Every day was Christmas in our house. Dad and Randy worked it off with manual labor and sports. Mom and I got fat. The fireplace had two grills, one facing north and one facing south. Dad fixed some more cars, and other friends, contractors this time, built a family room around the south side of the hearth and a covered patio over the north side. Fittingly, Mom bought a big table to put in the middle of the family room, and we ate there on weekdays. On Sundays, we ate on the more formal dining room table. Soup, salad, antipasto, roast beef, 3 vegetables, loaves of Italian bread, pie and ice cream with espresso for dessert. I have no idea how they paid for it. They were honest people, or how any of us lived past 40. But we all got old. Thank you very much. Puritanical types in later years criticized me for being indulgent. Guilty as charged, Your Honor. I was raised to enjoy what pleases me and to sacrifice for what matters to me and not make a big deal about it. If I give up something, it is to get something that I like. I see no romance in martyrdom. I've never suffered for some prize or objective that someone else told me I should value. In the mid-1960s, Moore Fixed Cars built another addition on the west side of the family room. First, it was Dad's man cave. He lay on a long couch and watched golf and old movies on TV until he fell asleep with the remote in his hand while the volume stayed on high. In the late 60s and early 70s, my aunt had a state-of-the-art hospital bed there, where she writhed for years in the agony of the aftermath of her many strokes. 608 Tarrington Road was a real love shack. The Italian-American workers that expanded the homestead every few years rolled on the lawn with me and tossed me in the air when I was little and asked me questions about how I was doing at school when I was a bit older. My mother saved money from her job at the bank and bought furniture for the place, piece by piece. She saved the most cherished bits of furniture all the way to her time in assisted living in her penultimate years, 6 decades later, before her world contracted even further to a bed, a window, and a ceiling as she succumbed to dementia. No one wanted any of her furniture when she wanted to pass it on. Not me, not Randy, not Randy's kids. The world had changed. Her relics of love had become old-fashioned. We didn't have the time anymore to consider each chair, dish, meal, article of clothing, toy, word, smile, and tear as an expression of something otherworldly. There was no patience for eternity anymore. The here and now demanded all. My parents were folk artists. They didn't know what art was, but they practiced it. Everything they did was poetic. Capitalism is a pathetic philosophy. It reasons that people are motivated by self-interest, that competition and greed are the engines of human creativity. Nothing good was ever created by selfishness. 608 Tarrington Road was built with familial love, friendship, romantic desire, kindness, generosity, joy. There was no motivation for profit. My parents financially broke even. They did it every month when they paid their bills, and they did it after they both had died. They always had just enough. It's miraculous how abundant our Christmases were. I never did get what I asked for. We took many family vacations. They'd argue when they were stressed about money sometimes, but they never split apart because of it or changed their overall attitude about it. My father was a lousy businessman. If an old lady had a damaged car, he'd fix it and forget about the bill when she did. He was asked to get involved with the mafia repeatedly and always said no. He never stole a dime from anybody or bullied anyone to get what he wanted. My mother worked in a bank with the spirit of a social worker. She really wanted to help people get what they needed for their families and small businesses. I was born before the whole culture was corporatized. Evil is like everything else. It takes time for it to figure out how to get what it wants and then figure out its plans. In 1955, a lot of other things were important in America besides business. Reagan was just starting out, honing his speech while he worked for General Electric. It would be 25 years before his amiably hostile takeover was completed. When capitalism is disguised as love, it supplants love, and all you are left with is criminality. If Reagan achieved the ascension of business over all aspects of our lives, Trump personified its perversion. Cruelty was all that was left. Reagan lied to everyone, including himself. That's why he was so effective, claiming that business is love. Trump just said, fuck love, dog eat dog, eat what you kill, me first. Of course, all of these attitudes preceded Reagan and Trump, but each man represents what happened to an entire culture. Not all of America, just white America. Of course, there have been many white dissidents protesting the rise of conservatism and fascism in America, but not many spent their lives living near Arundecoid Bay. My parents weren't consciously political at all when I was a child. My mother became quite progressive late in life. My father rarely voted. But I am sure that they would have been appalled by Trump if he had spewed his vitriol in 1955. They believed it was time to enjoy life. They earned it. They wanted the house, the furniture, the trips, etc. But they saw all of that as love, happiness for their family, camaraderie with their friends. They certainly didn't like to see poor, sick, and unhappy people be mocked and persecuted. And when they did see it, they tried to do something about it, or at least empathize. My parents were heavily influenced by the media of their day. The TVs, there were always at least 4 in the house, were always on at 608 Tarrington Road. My sainted paternal grandmother, who lived on the poor and crumbling west side of Rochester, was one of the first people to get a TV set. She incongruously adored professional wrestling. This daily communicant at the 6 a.m. Mass at St. Peter and Paul Church lustily cheered her bare-torsoed heroes, Dick the Bulldog and Bruno Sammartino, to victory over other half-naked men. Eisenhower, the guy who arrested the Nazis, was president. We were in a Cold War against communists who didn't treat people respectfully and stole their freedom. Bishop Fulton Sheen was on TV every week, telling us how to be good Catholics in the post-war world. Lucy and Ricky Ricardo were a lot like my parents, decent people who struggled but endured. And for all their comic imperfections, were ultimately terrifically sweet to their families and friends, even when under pressure. And I'm going to stop there. There's more, and maybe it'll be in the next video. I'm not sure. But this is the first. So that's my submission letter to you. And if you liked what you heard so far, I'm just scrolling down to see if I missed anything. No. If you like what you heard so far, please like this. Please like this video. And if you want to hear more of it, please subscribe. So, all right. Thank you for listening. See you next time. End stream.